Good evening, everyone. Child Psychology, Module 7. My name is Nadeem Sikander, dr.nsikander@gmail.com. We will be looking at, tonight's presentation will be the cognitive development and the teenage years. As you remember that in the last module number 6, we spoke about, we looked into the middle years, and now we are into the teenage years. In this module, we will be looking at the cognitive development, how it occurs in teenage, what adults can do to support that, the changes in that, how the changes occur, what Piaget theorized regarding cognitive development at this age, and the development of intelligence during this year. The foundation of cognitive development during adolescence is the ability to reason, think, and make choices. As we all learned that the cognitive development does start at the infancy, and as they grow older, from a childhood to the middle age and to the teenage, the information that they receive and how they process become more complex. So this module will look into that. The timeline of cognitive development in adolescence: most teenagers learn to use their concrete skills to further develop critical or complex thinking skills. This age is the age from 12 to 18 to take everything that they have learned, and then they will use that information from this point on to apply that into the real situation. This includes reasoning and learning to how to relate actions to their responsibilities and understanding cause and effect. So there are three sections for that. You have early adolescence, you have middle adolescence, you have teenage adolescence. So let's look at the early adolescence. As children enter this stage of cognitive development, they are in the throes of discovering their personalities. So when they are in early adolescence age, they are discovering their own personalities. Then children also are now at this point are somewhat allowed to use their own ways of thinking, and how things are happening in their life. And they also might imagine the views of other people, other views of early adolescence, as they're looking at. They are not the only one who have the views, but the opposition views and the opposite views are also are playing in their part in their lives. And this is where the conflict sometimes begins, because what they get to perceive does not necessarily translate or interpreted by the adults, and sometimes that's where the conflicts are. And until this point, there's always pretty much black and white thinking. The age before that, there's pretty they're given directions to follow, and then they're following those directions. But at this age now, they have reasoning, thinking through complex situations, so they have sort of developed areas of their brain where they can now question things. Then you have the middle adolescence, which can be even more difficult. So we have early adolescence, now we're in the middle adolescence, which can be a little bit more difficult for both teenagers as well as for the parent. This is when the cognitive development begin to broaden, and the teenager begin to think more about their own future. This involves quite complex thinking skills. Teenager will likely struggle with how they view the world around them and where they fit into the grand scheme of things. That's the middle adolescence age. Then you have the late adolescence. As a child enters into the late adolescence, we were talking about 12 to 18, they are regularly using their complex thinking skills, which they have developed over the past few years. And the teenagers will mature, become less self-centered, and will examine their own role in their community. This is when the teen will think about how they plan on fitting into the world around them as they're growing up. Here are some of the examples. of critical thinking that teen in the late adolescence will deal with. Choices about healthy lifestyle, career decisions, developing personal viewpoints, and weighing the input of their parents. And one of one way the parent can actually, or another adult in their lives, of late adolescence can help is to improve their cognitive development, because that's what we're talking about, how adults can help improve their cognitive development, is to encourage communication that is open. That's one thing we can do, is to have an open communication with this. And teens should be able to express their opinion, and they can also learn to not only listen, but also accept that there are other views as well. So, but it can only happen when you have an open communication that involves somewhat of a critical thinking. Piaget theory and the teenage years. Piaget also had a stage for those who are 12 years and older, known as formal operation stage. Formal operation stage is adolescents will develop new ways of manipulating information they receive. When they were younger, they could only think in a concrete manner. But in this new stage, however, they can think in an abstract, a more complex ways. So the teenagers in this stage can also deal with their own problem with some flexibility. So they can test different hypotheses, draw conclusions, and so on and so forth. A teen's cognitive maturity also occurs when the brain begins to mature. That's another thing. And their social network also expands, which offers more opportunities for life experimentation. However, Piaget believed that not every person goes through this stage of the cognitive development, and he says those who do not can be taught. For example, teenagers who do not have a solid education foundation might not go through this stage because they don't have the solid foundation. According to Piaget, education is required for cognitive maturation. So that's something that he says. Now we're looking at the teenage years and intellectual development. Triarchic theory of intelligence, which was developed by the psychologist named Robert Sternberg. This theory is made for 3 different types of aspects. One is componential, experiential, and contextual. One is critical aspect, insightful aspect, or practical aspect. So most of the tests, intelligent tests that are taken that measures componential intelligence, and that is according to Sternberg's theory, is that that 3 aspects are necessary for anyone to be successful in life, especially in today's modern and developed world. All 3 of them are necessary. Let's look at each one of them quickly. Componential intelligence is the ability that a teen has to use their own internal ways of passing information. This is used mostly involving solving problem in evaluating result. Those who have strong componential intelligence are well to do with the IQ test, standardized tests such as SAT, ACT, and so on and so forth. They also have more awareness of their own cognitive process, which further lends to their problem solving skills. That is to do with the componential intelligence. If you look at the experiential intelligence, that has to do with the novelty. This is where the person's ability to transfer what they have already learned to the new information that they're learning. So in other words, a person can compare the older information with the new information, and then they can be able to put the facts together in an original fashion. Those who are strong in experiential intelligence often can deal with novelty. They can quickly learn new tasks. Then we have the contextual intelligence. This type of intelligence is the ability of a person to apply their intelligence effectively, which includes consideration of considering culture, history, and social context. Those who are active in this type of intelligence, which is contextual intelligence, they can quickly adapt to new environment, and they can easily change to new environment as well. They can adapt and change from an environment to environment, and they can fix an environment which is necessary. One of the factors, according to John Piaget, children aged 12 years and older are in the formal operations developmental stage. Unlike their younger counterpart, when they were younger, children in this stage can now think in new abstract ways and draw conclusions about things that they may not have directly experienced in the past in the world around them. So cognitive development, morals, and judgment. There is another facet that appears in this stage of cognitive development, known as formal development and judgment. This is person's ability to know right from wrong. That's they also develop the morals and judgments. Piaget theory, he says that as a person cannot reach the post-conventional stage, which is where thinking moves from an abstract thinking to the shades of gray, until they have moved out of Piaget's concrete operation stage and into the stage that requires critical thinking. So concrete operation stage, Piaget, is the stage he says that they cannot think post-conventionally because they have to move out of that stage. But I mentioned that to you. There are other theorists who believe that the children are not growing from one stage to another stage. As with the moral development theory, this generally doesn't happen until a person reaches their early 20s. Finally, in conclusion, the teenage years of cognitive development are the most intense of all stages, as people begin to really learn about thinking and ideas. That's about the teenage years. Gone are those days that they saw the world in black and white, and now they must interpret and examine everything in the shades of gray. And they're questioning, interpreting, and examining different concepts such as morals and ethics. Going through this process is not easy for teenagers, as well as it's not easy for adults who are dealing with them. Coupled with biological changes, the teenage years can be emotionally a roller coaster for all involved, young people as well as the parents. The good thing, however, is that a person, when he or she gets through this time period of teenage years, they will have a fully functioning cognitive brain. Bravo, congratulations. So we've completed the teenage years and the cognitive development today. Congratulations to all of you for attending and completing this section. We are moving into the